So another week has gone by in the NFL, and this week was one of those, okay, how much do you really believe in what you were saying before? Because I think a lot of things really kind of got tested a little bit. A lot of notions that I kind of thought were like, you know what? We are locked in on this one. And so I think that this is like I said, it is a nice kind of testing your convictions sort of a weekend. And like when you look at, and we'll get into the Jets problems, we'll get into a couple of other things, but like I think the Ravens are a very good football team and can be Super Bowl contenders. How much do you think that though? Because that defense is clearly a problem. I think the Eagles may have, I don't want to say the window is closing, but I think there is some kind of a flaw with this Eagles team that is too much to overcome. How much do you believe that, though? Because that was a hell of a showing again this week, and now that is back-to-back pretty good weeks in a row for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Green Bay Packers can be Super Bowl contenders. Now, theirs is affected by an injury, but again, how much do you believe that? Because that was tested this week. And so I think that was kind of the theme of the week for me, is that there were a lot of previously held notions that were very much pressured when push comes to shove this week. And so I'm interested to kind of go through all of it. I wasn't able to watch as much football this week as I normally do. Had a nice little family day out there. So got caught up on as much as I could, but didn't get as in-depth on all of these games as normally I would like to. But let's begin with the New York Jets. Things are falling apart for the New York Jets right now, as they lose again, this time to the New England Patriots. And I don't want to hear any excuses. I don't want to hear anything. This one is simply not good enough for the New York Jets. New England coming into this game had given up 30 points in 3 of the last 4 weeks. To only get 22 points is a failure. New England had scored 20 plus points twice all season. To give up 25 points is a failure. And on that part, again, a lot of the excuses are gone. Hassan Reddick was back. Drake May wasn't playing. Jacoby Brissett, who was just a sitting duck week after week after week, comes out and leads that down your throat, and Ramondre Stevenson polishes it off for a team that was supposed to be defense first. And I get Robert Salah is out, but one of the things we said was like, yeah, this defense isn't really playing all that spectacularly, so the defensive first coach, you kind of gotta wear that one. But then you have to come in and play better in some way. And they just haven't. There has been no part of this team that has improved since the coach was fired. And so again, accountability is the big thing with the New York Jets. And again, it's tough when you make things hard on yourself, right? Well, yes, I guess it is. But this is just, again, not a standard that is going to be good enough. And the wheels have completely fallen off for this Jets team. And for a lot of us watching, it is excellent theater and kind of hilarious. But it's just so bad out there right now. And the defense, I think, needs to improve. Offensively, they need to improve. But hey, at least they have Devontae Adams now to miss deep passes late in football games, right? Like, it's a failure. It is a complete failure, a pathetic showing from the New York Jets in a game they had to have. You cannot take lightly any team right now when you're 2-5. And that's what this team did. Just a abysmal performance by the New York Jets as they stumble here against the New England Patriots. Every aspect of the game needs to be improved. And so now we get to one of the things where it's like, okay, this is challenging what we really think, because the Philadelphia Eagles, coming out of that game against Cleveland, it was like, you know what? I can't. I'm not taking this seriously anymore. I'm just not. There is something fundamentally off with what is going on with the Philadelphia Eagles right now. And then they get the big week, Saquon Barkley against the New York Giants, and you can explain that one off, right? You can explain, well, yes, they absolutely beat the hell out of the Giants. A is the Giants. B, Saquon Barkley, revenge game, motivated, just had a special game. You're not going to get that every week. The passing offense still struggled in a matchup they probably shouldn't have struggled as much as they did. But then to come out here against Cincinnati, who is another one where I didn't mention them in the open, but Cincinnati is a team where you are looking at them as like, what what are you? Because this defense had a couple of games where it's, you know what? Maybe they don't got the horses, but they know how to coach a defense up, and they have been able to schematically put this team in a position to succeed. And then Philadelphia comes out there and just big brothers them for 4 quarters, and Jalen Hurts lights their world on fire. And so now, do you have to start taking the Philadelphia Eagles a little bit more seriously? And given that I picked this team to be the number 1 seed in the NFC coming out of it, kind of have a bit of a lean to take this team seriously as much as I can. And I think that this is... I think that this is for real then, because I thought it was for real at the beginning of the season, and now they are playing the way that you kind of thought they were. So I am leaning towards taking the Eagles seriously now going forward. As for the Bengals, I don't really know what to make of this whole thing. To go out there and lose in that fashion is, I think, a little bit startling for them, again, against an Eagles team that I think is pretty good, but one that I will absolutely agree had some flaws. The Bengals are now 0-4 at home to start the season. And so when you have that, it is, again, tough to really take them seriously. And when you look at the schedule going forward, it's not daunting, but it's not easy either. Like, it feels a bit middle of the pack. So they get the Raiders next week. That is a nice soft landing spot. And if you lose that one, then it is certainly panic time. After that, you're at the Ravens. And that... it was not the most impressive showing for the Ravens this year, and that was a close game early on. But now you are traveling to Baltimore to have to play that game, and so that's certainly not an easy game. At Chargers, that's one of those middle of the road ones. Home against the Steelers, you know that's going to be a difficult game. At the Cowboys, at the Titans, home Browns, home Broncos, but then you close the season at Steelers. So there is a window there for the Bengals to still go out and make a push and do something, but this was one that was just more than a little alarming. Sticking in that division, the Baltimore Ravens defense is now officially a problem that I don't think we can overlook anymore when looking at this team as a real legitimate contender in the AFC. They have been able to outscore it a number of times, but you look at the points that they have allowed this season: 27 to the Chiefs, 26 to the Raiders, 25 to the Cowboys, 10 against the Bills. And again, that is the game that, if you are a Baltimore backer, is just going to stick with you all season, because that, I said it before and a couple other places have said it, no team has looked that good all season long. That was the most complete performance anyone has had in any game against some resistance all season long. That was spectacular what they were able to do. But then you give up 38 to the Bengals, 23 Commanders, 31 Bucks, 29 now against the Browns. And that is, again, simply not good enough. This defense lost quite a bit going into this season. And it was one of the things I said, because I was still buying into Baltimore, but one of the things that I was worried I was wrong about coming into the year was that Baltimore was still going to be able to scheme away and still have enough talent to adjust for the loss of Queen and the defensive coordinator. And it just hasn't really worked out that way. And so the Ravens are still a good football team, still a very good football team. This isn't a panic button push at all. But as we approach the trade deadline, this is another team that I think really needs to go out and try to address probably a couple of things on the defensive side of the football. The Washington Commanders, that is the win of the week. It is the win, the highlight of the season. You get the Hail Mary at the end of the game, a spectacular catch. It ends up being like one of the last plays that you see in the main window of games. Just an unbelievable moment for the Washington Commanders, and just a game that they, as a franchise, lose 110 times out of 100 previously. And for them to be able to bounce back in this way and come up with that win. Like, this isn't the Commanders are for real now, because we do have questions about Chicago, and again, you still needed a last-second Hail Mary to get to, what does it end up finishing with, 18 points? So, now, against a good Bears defense, I don't want to belittle this too much, but this isn't here come the Commanders now, but that's one of those wins that can carry you for weeks at a time now, and just another in a long line of this is a different Washington team than we are used to. And there are some things that can just stick with you as a franchise. The Jets are dealing with it right now. The Commanders seem to have been able to work their way out of it. They have a division matchup against the Giants coming up. This is an interesting stretch now of the schedule, and it's actually a bit of a tricky schedule the rest of the way. At Giants is not the most difficult of matchups, but then you got the Steelers, and then you got the Eagles. At Philadelphia coming up on November 14th. That is that a Sunday night game? No, that's a Thursday night game. So they have a bit of a tight turn going into a division matchup against the Eagles. That's going to be such a fascinating game. Then you got the Cowboys. Now another soft landing spot in the Titans. At the Saints, where we don't really know what that is. And then you close Eagles, Falcons at Cowboys. So there are going to be tests now for Jaden Daniels and for this team. And what a moment to come out of that and to be able to build off of this. So just, again, unbelievable. Celebrate all you want out in Washington. One quick thing on the Bears guy who, Tyreek Stevenson, who was taunting Commanders fans before the Hail Mary. Like, on the one hand, you could simply not, right? Like, and I don't know what insults are being hurled at him and what any of that is, or any of, like, if I was getting yelled at by 100,000 fans all night and it looked like I was about to win, I'd probably be talking my shit too. I'd probably wait till I had won, but I'd probably be talking my shit too. And so there are times where, oh, well, you just got to whatever. It's like, yeah, I don't know, man. You're getting yelled at by a ton of people. You might want to yell back at certain points. And some guys do, some guys don't. But I don't view that as a huge character flaw to do it. It looks bad when all of that plays out. But also, like, he does get in position after. Like, he is very obviously aware that, or very obviously unaware that the play is happening. But I do also think he gets back into position in time. Like, I don't think that had he not been jaw-jacking with the fans, that he then makes a play on that football to knock it away or anything like that. Now, they defended poorly, and so it looks bad because you, again, talk your shit and then don't get it. So that, like, just on a whole looks terrible. But I do also think, like, I would cut that guy in meetings tomorrow. So yeah, yell at him, but I don't think you cut him. Like, I don't think it's that. I think people are kind of blowing this one just a smidge out of proportion. Atlanta picks up their win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it was as easy to move the football on them as we expected. One thing, I do have to credit Tampa Bay for hanging in this game. Given the injury situation they have, given the just terrible loss they had against Atlanta a few weeks ago, it would have been very easy to just pack up, fold up, and just go away. But they battled and they battled and they battled. And there is, when we talk about those foundations being built, and I think there is that out in Tampa Bay, where, like, Baker Mayfield, Todd Bowles doesn't really strike me as a Super Bowl winning duo. But the culture they are establishing there, I think, is really important. And just kind of building up on that now, coming off of you lose Tom Brady and the coach leaves and all of those different things. This new era for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that they are establishing that, if nothing else, they're going to fight to the very last moment. And so you like to see that. For Atlanta, win's a win. You move on. You would like to see a defense maybe not have that much issue, given the limitations that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense has currently. But still, you pick up a win. It's a big division win. You now are a point clear of Tampa Bay for top spot in your division, and you have the tiebreaker because you picked up your wins over those teams. Their schedule the rest of the way kind of looks pretty easy, actually. They take on the Cowboys, then at the Saints and Broncos. Chargers at Vikings will be tough. At Raiders is not. Giants at Commanders feels like maybe it's a bit more difficult than we thought, and then home against the Panthers to end the season. So this feels like a part of the schedule now where Atlanta can really build up some momentum, but it also feels like a part of the schedule where it's going to be tough to fully buy into this team and take them all the way seriously. For the Green Bay Packers, this just feels like it is one of those years where it's not going to work, where you have the quarterback injury at the beginning, and you fight and you battle and you win a couple of games and you stay in the race, and that's awesome. But now they do get a win against Jacksonville, but Jordan Love is hurt again, and there was the phrasing high level of concern or something like that. Like it struck me as the from Billions, right? I am not uncertain. It's like, well, I'm not worried. And so it feels like one of those where you have a a team that is just fighting and scrapping and battling, and it's just week after week something goes against them and something goes against them and something goes against them. So we will see what they do here now with Jordan Love's injury and trying to work their way out of that one. It is easy from a like Madden standpoint to just be like, oh, just trade for a quarterback if your guy gets hurt. It is very difficult to implement a quarterback midseason. And for me, it was the prime example of this was the then Oakland Raiders when, and if you weren't there, this is going to sound weird, but Jason Campbell was just unstoppable for a season. As unstoppable as a Raider quarterback had been up to that point since Rich Gannon. And it had been a while since Rich Gannon. And so, like, this team that has been, that was this laughingstock in the NFL for probably at that point coming up on a decade, was finally coming out of it. And Campbell was playing the best football of his career, and he gets hurt. And so the Raiders, this is their first real opportunity to go to the playoffs, and like I said, about a decade. And so they go out and make a trade for Carson Palmer. And you think, perfect. This is definitely an Al Davis guy, because he can just chuck that thing, right? And so, okay, this makes sense. They overpaid to get him, but he's really frustrated in his spot in Cincinnati. He is not going to play another down for that football team. And so now you can bring him in and you can get a veteran, probably you would consider a talent upgrade, and move this team forward and get into the playoffs. Well, they were able to take advantage of a Chargers team that had a banged up offensive line in the first game that Carson Palmer played, but it didn't look great. And after that, he could not get it. They lost basically every game after that. They had a win in your end game against the Chargers in week 17 to close out the year, and they got shit kicked. And that was it. And so it is a bit of a cautionary tale where you look at, oh yeah, just go out and trade for veteran quarterback. He can come in and pick all this up. That's not necessarily going to be the case. It is very difficult. We saw it, apples and oranges, but we saw it a little bit in the Canadian Football League when Nathan Rourke tried to come in midseason. That didn't work either, or hasn't worked so far anyway. It is very difficult to come in, learn the playbook, get the timing down with your different receivers, figure out all the different reads and all of those things, and adjust to everything else. While, by the way, live bullets are flying and there's only 10, 9, whatever weeks left in the NFL season. So it is not so simple as go out, trade for quarterback X, and everything will be fine. That just doesn't work. It doesn't work in the NFL nearly as well as people would like to think that it does. And so now for Green Bay, it's a really difficult spot, and it is tempting to. And I'm not saying don't try, because it is a very tempting spot for them right now. They are half a game back of the Detroit Lions for top spot in the NFC North. And just looking at it, they are very clearly a playoff team right now in the AFC. They currently sit 5th at 6-2. Top 7 make it. Right now, the Bears are the first team out at 4-3. So again, a game and a half back of the Packers for that playoff spot. So it is going to be very tempting and going to be very interesting to see what the Packers end up doing. On Sunday Night Football, it was the 49ers and the Cowboys, and this was just these two teams are at where they are at. Like, to watch that game, I don't think this is a gigantic shift in power rankings or power ratings or however I view these football teams. That was not Sunday for these particular football clubs. The San Francisco 49ers pick up a convincing, it was 34-20, I believe. 30-24. So not as dominant and convincing as maybe I was leading on, but still, the 49ers are 6 points better than the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think that's a breaking news thing. This is just kind of these two teams are who we thought they were, and no one got let off of any hooks or anything like that. It is just, 49ers are a better football team than the Dallas Cowboys are right now. Maybe a touch alarming that they only won by 6, but given, Dallas can still put up some points. They still have some talent on that side of the ball, just not nearly enough to be able to compete right now. We talked about how right now the playoff situation is, and the Chicago Bears are on the outside looking in at 4-3, which would definitely mean the Cowboys are on the outside looking in at 3-4. Right now, they, with tiebreakers and everything, currently sit 13th in the NFC standings, and that is a lot of teams to have to jump over. They have to get over the Rams, Seahawks, 49ers, Buccaneers, Eagles, and Bears to get into a postseason spot as it sits right now. That is a lot of work that has to be done over the next little while. And when we look at the schedule the rest of the way, at Falcons next week, that is not an easy matchup. Eagles, home Eagles, that's tough. Home Texans, that's tough. At Commanders, a lot tougher than you thought it was going to be now. Then you get the Giants, you get the Bengals, who we're not sure about. You get at Panthers, and you get the Buccaneers. So there is a stretch of 4 games where they are going to have to go 0-4. They're going to have to go to 4-0 in that stretch. But that's still, as it sits right now, that gets you 4 wins, which gets you to 7, which is not going to be enough to get in the playoffs. And then they are at Eagles and home Commanders to close out the season. So when you are looking at it, you are going to have to sweep those games in that middle stretch there against those lesser teams and split probably with the Eagles and the Commanders, neither of whom you have looked anywhere close to so far this season. And that still gets you to 6, which gets you to 9, which should get you in as a top 7 team in the NFC, but is not a guarantee right now. We're talking about 9 wins getting you there. Green Bay needs 3 of them. They already won a couple games with Malik Willis as their quarterback. So even if they trot that out again, the odds are they're still going to be able to pick up at least those 3 wins. So it is going to be a difficult climb for the Dallas Cowboys to get into the postseason.